We had like one of those really old PC computers. Well, it wasn't old at the time. When I was like, in the first grade or something, and it's still, when you were on it and you would try to use the phone, it would make that noise. And
you had a cat phone? What was that?
So, and you guys know what sound I'm talking about, though.
Do it again?
No. It's like, it like gets low and then it gets high again.
You're doing like a radio.
It's like isn't it dial-up? Isn't that what it's called?
Hip hop, hippity hop. Welcome to the Wake and Post Show. We're the host show with your Mo Show, Mo and Joe. And today we are hopping into Easter mode. We're hopping out of Easter mode,
but we're going to flash back to Easter.
And for us, church workers, we hop out of Easter and right into Christmas mode. We're already planning for Christmas. We've just gotten back into the Christmas season.
Yeah, don't give people an illusion that we actually plan that far in advance.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but we are wrapping up Easter.
Yeah.
And
he's risen.
He's risen indeed. And this is one of those seasons where we kind of drag out the old rug and the old decorations, and we kind of just kind of fall into. It's easy to fall into like the rhythms of, hey, we've done this a million times, we've heard these stories a million times. And I know for a lot of people who kind of grew up going to the church, the story of Easter is so just ingrained into us that it kind of sometimes can lose a little bit of meaning, and so I always try to challenge myself when I see things becoming like cliches in my mind, or like when I start to fill in the sentence before it's even said, to take a step back and be like, well, let's let that actually sit in and settle for a second. So if we were going to take Levi's sermon and sit in and settle with it for a second, is there anything that settled with you this week?
Yeah, I don't think it specifically pertains to anything that Levi said in particular, but just thinking about Easter, and I think specifically thinking about Good Friday, and the importance and value that day and that feeling brings. It just made me think about how during Easter we are so eager, and I think we see it as an easy time to invite people into church, because I think generally it's really common to attend church on Easter and Christmas. That's like an easy time to be like, hey, come to church, that's like a super easy invite. And I think that that's really awesome. But I think that I have been thinking about, what would it look like to have that mindset all the time with my relationships. It's not just Easter that we have to be like, oh yeah, and like Jesus died and rose from the dead for our sins. Like we can be thinking about that all the time and bringing that into our relationships, and also like making sure that we are giving the full picture of the Easter story. Not just saying Jesus rose from the dead, but that also Jesus died a really horrible death on the cross for us. And like that's what makes the resurrection and the celebration and the excitement of Easter. It's like we can't have that without Good Friday, you know?
It's kind of interesting that it has become the easy invite though, because it is probably the most difficult part of like the Christian story, right?
And it's heavy.
Yeah. And so to be like, hey, you're, thinking about faith, come along when we talk about this dude being tortured to death.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's an interesting spot.
Yeah, I think it's mostly like a cultural thing, is that people feel more like obligation.
Yeah.
Or maybe even like more guilt. I don't know. Or maybe conviction. Maybe it's either to go back to church if you haven't been going, or like you have kids and you're like, oh, I want my kids to know about this, like that. I think that plays a big part in it as well.
Yeah. This while I was gone, I was down in Arizona. Shout out to Zach for filling in, but I got to go on this little hike with my sister. She's 8 years old, and she told me about this spot that she called God Mountain. And she was like, you want to go up God Mountain with me? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And it was like 90 degrees out. It was a hot day. And it was steep, but there were stairs built into this mountain. I didn't really know what we were getting into, and there's a bunch of false peaks, so I couldn't really see where we were going. But she loved this place, and so we were hiking up this mountain. And there were stations along the way. And I realized pretty quickly that these stations, which were set up as sort of seating spots and a lot of them had little memorials on them and things like that. But each of the stations were dedicated to different parts of Christ's walk to the grave, and ultimately his resurrection. And it was really cool to get to like go through them with her, because she didn't quite understand them, but also to just like physically, like I was strained by like, sweating, and it was a hot day and going up the steep mountain, but to just like soak this in and redevelop that story in my mind in a different setting, and just get the visualizations to go with it. It was a really cool way to kind of consume Christ's death and resurrection. So it set my heart up for the sermon on Sunday and just for the season really well. All that to say, that doesn't necessarily correlate with Levi's sermon, but it was just, again, that idea of stepping back and re-inviting yourself into the story as if it's a new story to you that you're hearing for the first time, I think is a really healthy process to enter into. Yeah, definitely. I think something I've been really putting a lot of thought into, not just because of Easter, but from a few other things that I've been exploring and doing my own personal walk with the Lord, of thinking about, how am I not giving somebody the full picture, and why am I not giving them the full picture? Is it because maybe I need to be renewed in that way, like you were saying that you were, like I need to be renewed in the story and remember everything that Jesus went through? Is it because I'm scared? Is it different based on different relationships, because I'm worried what people are going to think about me? And I think I do that so often in many different ways and different aspects of my life, where I am not giving the full Easter picture. I'm not giving the hard death on the cross, or maybe I'm not giving the resurrection. Maybe I'm giving too much in one area and not enough in the other. And I've just been super convicted, and I don't really have a practical tip, or I haven't realized anything. It's just been something that I've been working through and praying through, of where am I doing that in my life and in my individual relationships, because I think it looks different in every relationship. Yeah, well, maybe the meaning of what we're speaking about here, you speaking about sort of inviting people into it, and me speaking about experiencing it for the first time, is I often think about how much I enjoy experiencing things that are like common to me through the eyes of someone who hasn't experienced them before. Yeah. So you get that friend that visits Alaska for the first time, and you take them out to Beluga Point, and you're like, oh gosh, I've been to Beluga Point a million times. But them just being like, this is right here, like the oceans and the mountains, and you're like, oh yeah, you're right. This is amazing. This is a sacred spot. Yeah, it's like, and we whether it's our favorite restaurant that we get to introduce someone to, and then we get to kind of see them, oh, you got to try the guacamole here, whatever it is. But like, to take a step back and think about it and experience it as if it's the first time, I think should get you invigorated and excited to invite someone into that relationship and care with them and foster them through that, because it's an incredible privilege to be able to do that with someone. Yeah, definitely. Well, you have anything else to say? I think that was a great point to leave them with. I don't have anything this week. I don't have any recommendations for you guys or anything you should be listening to or watching. So if you have any for us, we'd love to hear them in the comments. Yeah, definitely. Give us a book that you've been digging, a podcast, maybe it's some worship music that you've really enjoyed, whatever's been filling you up this week and getting you through this Easter season. We'd love to hear about it. It's came up a couple times this week. This is more of a somber note that, this season of spring is unfortunately, suicide rates are higher than usual. And with the year that we're coming off of, just remember to reach out to the people around you, remind someone that you love them this week. And if you need someone to talk to, please reach out to us. Yeah. And remember that we love you. Yeah, thanks for celebrating Easter with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Yeah. Bye, guys. Okay, that's all.